Ankush Kumar Bahl, Music Director, Omaha Symphony. Ankush Kumar Bahl is the 13th music director in the Omaha Symphony's 100-year history. He is recognized today by orchestras and audiences alike for his impressive conducting technique, thoughtful interpretations, and engaging podium presence. His recent guest conducting highlights include performances with the New York Philharmonic, Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, Detroit Symphony Orchestra, Orchestra of St. Luke's, and many more. Bahl is a proud recipient of 4 separate Schulte Foundation U.S. Career Assistance Awards between 2011 to 2016 and the 2009 Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy Scholarship, Leipzig. He is a protege of former New York Philharmonic music director Kurt Masur. Bahl served as his assistant conductor at the Orchestre Nationale de France, the Royal Concertgebouw Orchestra, and the Leipzig Gewandhaus Orchestra. American-born and of Indian descent, Maestro Bahl is a native of the San Francisco Bay Area and received a double degree in music and rhetoric from the University of California at Berkeley. He also attended the Manhattan School of Music. Please welcome Ankush Kumar Bahl in conversation with William Ford, AtlantaMusicCritic.com.
I was looking at some interviews that you've done and some written stuff on your website. And as I recollect, you began out in percussion?
Like my very first instrument, like 4 years old, studying rhythms in a music shop back room with a teacher. I just remember very clearly, very young.
That was your first experience with a teacher? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but I remember telling him, and I don't remember the exact words, but I remember telling him something to the effect of, I would love to play pitches, not just rhythms. Like, this is a little boring for me, and I said I wanted to play with other people. Like, that was I remember communicating that to him, again, when I was like 4 years old, and he said, okay, you should start a string instrument or something. So I started the violin very quickly after that. I played the violin through high school. In 3rd and 4th grade, I started the French horn. So I played that through college and pre-professional level until I started conducting, and I did horn and conducting for a little while, and then I just kept the conducting going.
You went to undergraduate and got a degree in music and rhetoric. Mm-hmm. And then...
So then I spent 1 year, kind of a gap year, studying with a teacher at University of Michigan, a couple teachers at University of Michigan. Not enrolled, I kind of worked during the day and studied during the day and studied at night, and just is a really wonderful conducting teacher named Kenneth Kiesler. So I got a lot from him. But then I went on to grad school in the Manhattan School of Music in New York, which was a learning experience in itself, just being in New York City and going to Carnegie Hall and going to Lincoln Center and going to New York for rehearsals. And it just, being around all that was just an education. Plus my teacher was fantastic. His name was Zdeněk McCall, and he was a wonderful Czech conductor, real maestro, and really, really smart, and really genuine musician.
And before your appointment here, you were still living in the Bay Area?
No, so I went from the Bay Area to Michigan to New York for 12 years, and then I won the assistant conductor position at the National Symphony with Christoph Eschenbach. And eventually me and my then girlfriend got married and had children, and we moved to DC to continue that job.
So you became music director designate when?
Last summer, not this last summer, 14 months ago or so.
And then you officially became?
July 1.
As you probably know, at least the myth goes that each president leaves a note for the subsequent president. Yes. And the resolute deaths. Right. Did Thomas leave you a note?
Not a note. We had a couple conversations on the phone. One on Zoom with the board was present, but we had talked privately before and after that. So he's a really wonderful human being, huge shoes to fill, incredible conductor and musician, very important. And it's very humbling to take over for him. He was embedded, and he's here for 16 years, and he's beloved.
What makes you a good fit for the Omaha Symphony?
I jokingly said when I came here for the 2 guest weeks that I did before being named music director, the second week was more the intensive, okay, we're actually having interviews and recording you and vice versa. But it is, I jokingly said it's an interview for both. Like, they're interviewing me, I'm also interviewing them. Because I want to make sure it's in a good situation where I can actually get the work done that I want to, musically and otherwise. And I think the Omaha Symphony was a perfect fit for me, given where my career is, where my level is in terms of music, but also it felt like a very fertile institution and community to make music in, and also create in and innovate in. All these are things that we talked about in our interviews, just kind of getting to the next, what are the next 100 years of music making at this Omaha Symphony going to be? We just turned 100 as an orchestra. So they were very intrigued by my thoughts about the next 100 years in my tenure. And they were, of course, musically it was a match. The orchestra and I got along extremely well. And I had a lot of fun with them that week, the first week. And it was very obvious that we had a connection. And then you kind of do your due diligence on the other stuff. You start meeting with the board, you start meeting with the community members. I met with Washington Garcia. I'm just trying to understand what the community is about and if it would be a good fit and could I get what I want to accomplish musically, again, and otherwise. And this was perfect. You want to make sure musically everything's great. The hall's great. My concertmaster is amazing. The orchestra principals are all fantastic. The orchestra is fantastic. We can do anything here. It's a really Thomas left me a very he didn't leave me a note. He left me a great orchestra.
Are there specific goals that you formulated yet differentiate you from what's come before?
But I'm generally someone who thinks that the orchestras, for lots of different reasons, many of them are good reasons, between the union and the way the organization structures are and the way orchestras are put together, they've lasted really robustly for a while, even though everyone says the demise of orchestras is impending. We've heard that since, I read an article that said that in 1929. There's nothing wrong with our product. It purely speaks to people. Sometimes there's something wrong with the packaging. And certainly I feel, growing up in the Bay Area, where most of my friends and my parents run small businesses or work in tech or work in internet companies like Facebook and Google, we need to innovate. I grew up in the Bay Area, and I'm very cognizant of the fact that if we don't innovate as an institution, we're gonna become a museum culture. We're not gonna be able to do. We're not going to survive in the same robust way. So that was attractive for me, that this orchestra and the administration wanted that. And you're going to see some stuff in the concert hall that's going to, at least at the beginning, slowly kind of head us in that direction, where the concerts are not going to be just classical music and you in a dark room listening to live music. That's not all we're going to do. We're going to have a little bit of enhancements to little things here and there, maybe visual, maybe lighting, maybe partnering with the community that's going to enhance the product, enhance the music, never take away from it.
I know orchestras are all trying to reposition because of demographic changes, because of included in that is the aging of the audience. Do you think you're going to be building off the experience of others, or you'd be foolish not to?
Sure.
But do you have things that might be uniquely Omaha?
Yeah, for sure. We're doing a lot of commissioning work. We're thinking about basically a new writing music for our orchestra every year. We already have a couple ideas in the pipeline, and even this season, our last Masterworks has a world premiere of a violin concerto that we were able to procure before anyone else did. And so that's going to be Omaha's. Omaha's going to premiere it. We're going to work on it for the first time. We're going to bring it to life, and it's going to be ours forever. And we'll have at least one a year going forward. There's initiatives that I'm going to help with conductors, bringing in young conductors, possibly of diverse backgrounds, and just getting them experience and mentoring them. We all felt on our team that we kind of had to reinvent it. That we kind of did it ourselves and figured it out ourselves. So we said, why don't we just try to codify that for people and help them see what a typical assistant conductor a consistent conductor audition looks like. See how to be a good assistant conductor once you get that job. We're not doing quite how to study a score type stuff, how to read music type stuff. We're just trying to talk about what's a good CV cover letter look like, how to be what's a good education concert look like, because that's a lot of the concerts we do at the beginning. And I really felt I had to lean on some colleagues, but kind of reinvent everything when I was doing it. and I'm trying to pay it forward now. We're working with composers, living composers. There's pretty much a living composer in almost every concert this season, and we're going to continue to do that. American living composers. When I took the job, of the top 40 orchestras, which are classified by budget size, Group 1 and Group 2, currently, because of some attrition and some mixing around or some switching, there's only 5 or 6 American-born conductors of top 40 orchestras, and that's really low. If the Group 1s of the world, the top orchestras, are not going to serve or present American conductors as much, but why not here in Omaha? So this season, we're presenting only American conductors, only North American or American soloists, only American living composers, only living American guest artists. So of all the living composers, I should say they're American. There's nothing. Of course, we're doing other Russian and whatnot. So we're excited. We're saying, you know, why not? Why can't we, like, find the next Yo-Yo Ma or the next Leonard Bernstein? Like, we're a Group 2 orchestra. We're right at the cusp. And so if we can help cultivate a career of somebody who's kind of on this level, pop them into our Omaha Symphony, give them a nice, maybe a leapfrog to the next level. So I feel like that's really something that we can take on as an orchestra and an organization, and everyone's excited to do that.
Are there contemporary composers that you particularly admire?
I mean, I'm starting my first concert, the first 101st year of the Omaha Symphony, the beginning of my tenure, with a piece by John Adams, and that was very purposeful. He is our Leonard Bernstein. He is our Aaron Copland. He's America's greatest living composer, and he's not someone that's played often in Omaha and other places. They've certainly done some of his works, but he's someone who should be on every season. His style of music is really unique. His language is unique. The colors he can create in an orchestral work is phenomenal. And again, it's not the easiest piece to conduct or play or even listen to on some level, but if you sell it right and you couch it right and you kind of make a piece by him the norm, like on a subscription, on a regular big concert, on my opening, I'm hoping it's going to open the audience's ears to more pieces like that. You know, other living composers we're going to see is Michael Dougherty, Clarice Assad, Sarah Kirkland Snyder, Carolyn Shaw, Adam Schoenberg is a dear friend of mine, and he's a fantastic composer, and we're doing one of his pieces in January I'm excited about. I think it's a real living masterpiece, his picture studies. And I looked at the score one day and I called him up right after. I'm like, Adam, this is a masterpiece. He's like, thanks, man. He's like, I think it's good too. I think it's one of my better works. I'm like, it is. And they're all great, but I can't wait to study it and get involved. You're not going to find, every piece we're going to do is not the next Mozart, but if you do 100 pieces over my tenure, you're going to find the 5 or 10 gems, and that's again discovering the next Bernstein and Copland and John Adams. I think it's really important what we do. Again, if we're not a living, evolving, innovating institution, we're just going to be a museum where people come to the museum and they see Beethoven on the wall, and we're really it's just stagnant. And that was never the case of classical music. It was in Beethoven's time. It was always fresh, always new. In Mozart's time, everything he wrote was new. No one said, "No, I only hear Bach." And in Beethoven's time, no one said, "We're only doing Mozart." It was a living part of the culture, and I think it can be again. I used to do a lot of, as assistant conductor, and I've been assistant conductor in many different orchestras. We do a lot of education concerts, and I always try to make my education concerts have a little bit of everything. They're going to have some Tchaikovsky and some Beethoven and some Mozart, but they're also going to have some Steve Reich, some living composers, some Latin composers, maybe a piece by a French composer. Because you have this person, this fourth grader's attention for 42 minutes, and you want to throw everything against the wall because they don't have an opinion. They don't know that Beethoven is Beethoven and Steve Reich is Steve Reich. They have no idea. You don't know what they're going to latch onto. So I want to expose them to as many colors as possible. So if they say, wow, that rhythmic piece by Steve Reich was really cool, that's great. They're like, wait, maybe I do like classical music, Kids, well, first of all, I do that for education concerts, and then I think about that when I program my entire season as well. Because if you're subscribing to our 7 Masterwork series, I want to make sure that you're going to get a breadth of what's out there, because I also don't know if you are going to love everything you hear or latch onto French music as opposed to German music as opposed to John Adams. So all the creative process, trying to expose the audience to everything. like Bob did in Atlanta, and Michael Tilson Thomas did in San Francisco, which is where I grew up and played in the youth orchestra, and that's where I met John Adams himself. And so it's a part of what we do. It's an important part of showing that music, showing all kinds of music to the community, because again, you don't know what they're going to latch onto. You know, if you are in New York City or in any metro area and you see a busker at the subway or a busker on the corner, every kid under age 13 and 14 is going to stop and be like, it doesn't matter if they play an instrument or not. They are going to be captivated by this music coming out of an instrument. At some point, we lose that childlike response and that childlike awe and that desire to listen to it. And it's my job as the music director of the Omaha Symphony to bring that back into the community and make sure you lost it for all the wrong reasons. You got busy with school, you got busy with work, you got busy in your life and your children and your spouse potentially. But there's nothing, the music didn't change. Music is here for you now that you have time again. Come back, you know? Be open to this stuff, because that's what you actually find. When people finally have the resources financially and the time, because their kids are out of the house and they're maybe retired, that's why people are gray-haired in the audience. It's not because only old people like old music. It's because this is now you have the time and opportunity. You're living your life in a different way than you did when you were hustling and having a young family or having a young career. That's what it is. And so I'm bringing everyone back. And I want to bring young people in too. I still consider myself young, and I got into classical music when I was young, and I think there's a place for young people in the audience as well. So we're trying to make concerts that are maybe earlier in the day, just after work, like a happy hour concert, where they can just swing by on the way home from downtown, come see a concert, have a cocktail, see some cool music, and get home to tuck their kids in, you know, or to relieve the nanny or whatever it is. So we're trying all kinds of different things. I mean, I think about my parents and my wife, who played piano through high school, but is not really a musician, and that's someone who never came to a lot of classical concerts until we met. I think about people who don't know about music, and that's why I try to present them. That's what I try to present at a concert. It doesn't matter if you don't know anything. It doesn't matter if you've heard Beethoven 7 0 times or 100,000 times. I'm still going to try to give you insight to the piece. I'm still going to try to get you to know what to listen for, know the context of this piece. Why is this piece important? What is the John Adams about? What should you be listening for? Like, I kind of assume that you don't know anything when you come, and that's a great thing, because classical music is for you, no matter who you are. You can wear whatever you want to. You can wear flip-flops and a t-shirt, come to the concert hall. You can have never seen a concert in your life, come to the concert hall. Like, I will make it approachable. You'll see tonight. It'll be something you're going to enjoy, and you don't have to know anything. Come as you are. I think that's the goal too. So yeah, if you wanted, my wife maybe wants a drink during the concert, and my parents maybe want to learn more about the program before they hear it. And like, these are kind of people I'm thinking about when I'm programming and speaking and presenting. So yeah, just more different. Again, the product, is nothing wrong with the product. There's something wrong with the packaging sometimes. We have to reinvigorate it.
You've had many notable mentors throughout your career. I mean, you don't get much better than Kurt Masur or Noseda, Eschenbach. Is there anyone who, I know it's difficult to answer because if you name one, you're kind of leaving out others. Anyone that particularly influenced how you approach the music?
Yes, if you ask that question that way, it's Kurt Masur. Because when I do the core repertoire, Schumann, Mendelssohn, Brahms, Bruckner even, and Beethoven, I'm always thinking of him. He's always with me. Because I did a lot of that repertoire with him. I watched him do it. I studied with him. I asked him questions when I was his assistant conductor in Paris and elsewhere. And I had a lot of time with him, because sometimes when you're the assistant conductor, you can have pretty much every meal with that person, and he enjoyed those conversations, and I did too, and I learned a lot, and it deepened my relationship to those composers by a lot. And I'm very grateful that I met him at a time where I was more receptive to getting that kind of information. I met him late 20s, 30s, just turned 32-ish. So I wasn't 22, I wasn't 12. I was ready for it, really, to be able to download that information, and it definitely informs how I do all those masterworks. he speaks about how Beethoven's Sforzando might be different than a Mozart's Sforzando or forte piano or più forte, and he's a very it's a very trustworthy interpretation of, because he's German, he's in Leipzig, and so when he does Mendelssohn, and Mendelssohn was the conductor in residence at the Gewandhaus, so and he started the conservatory in Leipzig. I mean, it's so entrenched in him. So when I see him do it and ask for it and express what he wants for an orchestra 100 times, it also gets embedded in me. So what I'm asking for with this orchestra in Beethoven, I owe a lot to. One nugget that I remember, again, being ready to receive this information was, he's such a dear man on so many levels. Kurt Masur always put the music first, ahead of his ego, ahead of his desire, ahead of his career, ahead of everything. And he maybe didn't articulate in such rhetoric that I am about to, because he doesn't use the same kind of words that I do. But he essentially said to me one day, he was having an issue with the soloist, maybe a little bit of an issue with an orchestra, and we were in his dressing room, and he just said, "Look, if you're putting the music first, it's not about me. I'm not saying you're out of tune because it's not about me. It's like the music is showing you're out of tune, or you're not lining this up, or you're not doing the dynamics." And it's like, I'm protecting the composer at all times. And when I'm thinking about the composer, it's very simple. Because like when I'm thinking about the composer, I'm never wrong. I'm always right when I'm thinking about the composer. Conversely, if you think about your own ego or your career, or how you look conducting a piece, or how you look conducting an orchestra, or how the audience is going to, other things outside of the music, then you can be wrong. Then you have a vulnerability to being incorrect and being attacked by somebody, or the orchestra, or the soloist. But when you're about the music, you're never wrong. Essentially, that's what he said. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. It's great. And I was ready to receive that. I was at a point in my career where I think about that all the time. And we recently had an assistant conductor audition where we hired this amazing Deanna Tham. And she was a clear choice, and she was wonderful. I remember talking to one of the other candidates, giving them feedback, and I kind of gave them this nugget also. I'm like, if you focus on the music, the career will happen. If you focus on the career, the music will never happen. That's kind of what I said to him. And he emailed me 3 days later and was like, total light bulb. Like, I focus so much about the career and what's my next job, and I feel desperate, and I feel anxiety about those kinds of things. And if I just focused on the music and studying, and God willing, you get lucky. I always jokingly say I got lucky. I didn't get lucky once. I got lucky 17 times to become the music director of the Omaha Symphony. I was in the right place at the right time several times, not just once. But in the 20 years or so of conducting, I was also working my tail off to get better, to learn, to grow, and deepen my relationship with the music and orchestras. So when I got lucky and was in the right place at the right time, I was ready. So you mentioned mentors, and I'm someone who's really fascinated about the craft of conducting, and I've been going to rehearsals my adult life ever since I started conducting other people's rehearsals, even whether I was the assistant conductor or not. I used to live 2 blocks from Lincoln Center, maybe a block and a half. I'd roll out of bed. I knew the backstage guys. I knew the security guards. I knew people in the offices, and they would say, "Yeah, come on up." I'd sit in a 3rd-tier balcony, and I'd watch every conductor conduct the New York Philharmonic for years, because I always learned something. Even if I learned what not to do or what wasn't working, it was almost more valuable to learn that than what was working really well. So I think, again, I think of conducting as flight time, like being a good pilot. Like Sully Sullenberg, if he was a young 25-year-old pilot, all those people would be dead. But he had a ton of flight time. He knew what to do. He knew the levers. He was calm in the moment, similar to watching rehearsals. And I watched great conductors do wonderful things. I watched great conductors do terrible things. I watched bad conductors. I've seen everything. And so I can't articulate, oh, when I went to this person's rehearsal, they did something bad. I'm never going to do that. But just being in the room for so many hours, and I still do it. I still assist Japan Sweden at the New York Philharmonic when I can, because I still feel like I learned so much from that experience. But I'm just a fan of conducting. I'm inquisitive about conducting. So given an opportunity to watch a conductor conduct and have opinions about that, I take it every time when I can. It's an important part of what we do. I think it is a very unique and interesting craft. That's why I'm attracted to it as a career.
Have you conducted a program and you get back and conduct a suite and you say, oh my God, that was awful?
Yeah, all the time. There's a very famous story that Toscanini, did a concert. I think it might have been Beethoven 5, I'm not sure. Did some concert with the NBC orchestra and, turned around, finished the concert, turned around, walked out the podium, walked out the backstage door, got in his car and went home because he was so disappointed with himself and the orchestra. Kurt Masur tells me a story when he first conducted the New York Philharmonic. He's someone from East Germany. He walked up, and not the first time he conducted, but one of the first early seasons he did Bernstein's symphonic dances from West Side Story. He got up on the podium, conducted West Side Story, closed the book and said, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You know this piece better than I do. I'm going to go home and study. I'll be back tomorrow. And he let him out an hour early because he didn't know it. And he knew he didn't know it. He didn't know it as well as the New York Philharmonic did because it's New York Philharmonic with Lenny's orchestra. So we all have to have those moments that we're humbled, that the only way that would not have happened to the conductor, or to me in particular, is if I had no standards, or if I had no goal. If there was a piece or that was new to me, or I didn't care about, or I thought it was fluffy or superficial somehow, I guess I can imagine I would go and never have that experience where I was upset. But I am upset all the time because I have standards and I'm demanding of myself and of the orchestras I'm working with. And I think that's a normal part of being a conductor. And like I said, it happened to the greats. So it's going to happen to me once in a while.
How do you feel about soundtrack music?
I think all music is great. I think good music is great. Bad music is bad, good music is good. I recently saw a concert with a country singer, and I remember saying, oh, I like country music? This guy was an amazing baritone, great voice, very wonderful music. Me and my wife listen to folk music and pop music and what's on the radio today and rap music, and I grew up on the West Coast. I have and all good music is good music. I remember having a conversation with a board member at Aspen when I was a student there, where we were arguing with them that Dr. Dre's Chronic 2000 is a masterpiece of Western music, because it is. Like it was innovative at the time. It was groundbreaking on so many levels. It was musical and lyrical and harmonically beautiful. And I'm not saying this is my pinnacle of Western music, but it is in the canon. It's an absolute masterpiece. And they made a movie about it, the whole making of that record, and because it's basically Amadeus and Mozart of that time. So I'm not someone who says this music is bad and this music is good. I grew up playing, among other instruments, French horn, and did marching band, and did drum corps, and and I was very much attracted to soundtrack music. I probably at some point owned every single one of John Williams' soundtracks in my CD library. Like as a horn player, as a young person, I was very much attracted to this music. And I still am. The fact that we do movies and concert with live music. The Harry Potters and the other John Williams scores. I think it's an important way to bring the audiences in. I kind of jokingly call them gateway drugs. They bring the people into the hall, and you say, "Oh, you like Jaws and you like John Williams? Then you're gonna love Nutcracker, because John Williams the entire Home Alone soundtrack is basically Nutcracker." Jaws is Dvorak 9. Star Wars is The Planets, by Holst. And that's what happened to me. I started with John Williams, and I discovered a Dvorak 9 CD. Then I discovered a Holst Planet CD. Then I started playing in youth orchestras, and I started really learning that repertoire and falling in love with it. So I'm all for it. Next year, you're going to see a concert that's going to have a John Williams overture on our Masterworks, because in 50 years, he's going to be the composer that's going to open a concert of regular classical music, just like maybe a Rodgers and Hammerstein would today, like a Carousel or a West Side Story. So we're going to have a John Williams overture, and it could be E.T., it could be Star Wars, it could be anything. I am not going to judge. Like I said, people like what they like. Whatever that means, you can have your own emotional response. Everyone will have a different personal emotional response to music when they listen to it, and I love that. Well, this is also why I usually don't do concerts of all of one type of music. That's not the goal. Some conductors do. And some programs that they're going to bring to the Omaha Symphony as guest conductors might be that, something like that. But still, like, because I don't want someone to leave a concert saying, wow, I didn't like any of that. Because then they're not going to come back. They might come to this concert tonight and say, well, I really like the Adams, but I didn't really care for the Beethoven because it's too long, and that's fine. Or they might say, I love Beethoven, and that was the most blank Beethoven I've ever heard, but that John Adams piece I could do without. Well, it's fine. It's only 13 minutes long. You'll be okay. I think the goal, now that I'm starting my tenure at the Omaha Symphony, is to build a trust with the audience that, again, if they don't like something, I can try to get them to like it. That's why I speak at concerts. I want to get to a point where it's almost like a Japanese omakase menu, where you come to the concert hall and you don't know what you're going to get. You just sit down and I serve you what we have ready to go. And I think that's the goal. So the audience trusts you. They can look at a season, like a single ticket thing that they don't have tickets for, not a subscription, and say, I don't know any of these pieces, or even a subscription package. Say, I don't know any of these pieces on concert 4, but I trust Ankush. I trust the Omaha Symphony. And I trust their programming ability and what they bring to the table, so I'm just going to go, and I'm sure I'll have a nice evening. That's the goal. So this whole first season is about me building trust with the audience. And it started last night with our first concert. It's going to continue through this weekend into our next concerts in the Jocelyn Museum next month. So I'm excited.
Great. Excellent.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Join at www.patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. Produced by William Ford.